Hello, friends. This is Dolores Williams of DW's View. Stand up. If we do not stand up, who will? This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I want to thank my sponsor and my friend, Kim Yater of Peak Performance Coaching. If you have any issues in your life, whether personal or professional, you need to contact Kim. She will help you get things set straight. You can contact Kim at Kim Yater at Peak Performance Coach. She is at Kim Yater at Calendly, CALENDLY.com/Kim, KIMYEATER. It's okay to be stuck, but it's not okay to stay stuck. And this morning, I have a very special guest that I want to reintroduce you to, dear friends. And his name is Chad Stewart. And you're going to enjoy this interview. And I also encourage you to go back and listen to our previous podcast. And Mr. Chad Stewart was born in Newport Beach, California. And for 20 years, he has 20 years of experience in writing fiction, nonfiction, and screenplaying. He is an award-winning, best-selling author, educator, global strategist, and creativity expert that will come out in this meeting today. He is the founder of the prestigious Britfield Institute in 2019 and Devonfield, dedicated to the highest quality in publishing, films, and education. He has earned several degrees and is pursuing his PhD. He is a strong supporter of education and the arts. Chad spends his days educating children, teachers, parents globally about vision, creativity, family values, and adventure. And Lord knows we need some more of that today. Please help me welcome my friend Chad Stewart. Good morning, Chad. How are you today?
Thank you, Dolores. Great to be on your show again.
Yes. Yes. Now, I want to get right in and talk about Brittfield, because this is such a wonderful adventure that you're on and that you have taken a lot of people with you. God just graced you with this information, and I'm so thankful that you're out there sharing it. Now, Brittfield and the Lost Crown is one of the most awarded and loved film books, fiction books rather. What inspired you to produce? I want you to talk about that again, the Britfield series.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm originally from Newport Beach, California. I was back east for about 16 years, and it was a little over 10 years, maybe 11 years now. When I was in banking and finance, I was down at this seminar on the weekend, and it was a very boring seminar, and I started to doodle, and I doodled a simple circle, 3 lines, a basket, a boy and a girl, and I wrote the boy and the balloon. And I say all of that to say it just started from something so simple. And I think often that's how it is. And I just had this big idea. I thought, oh, what a fun story. I just resonated with the doodle, and I started to see it, come together, where it was 2 orphans, a boy and a girl, Tom and Sarah, both 12 years old. Takes place in England, present time, and at a horrible orphanage called Weatherly Orphanage up in Yorkshire, Northern England. Tom's been there for 6 miserable years, and this is the year he's going to escape. And so that's kind of how the whole story started. I went home that weekend. I outlined it with just bullet points really fast. I was like, oh, what does it look like? Where do I want to go in my story? And I was thinking, okay, so Yorkshire, and then Oxford would be cool. And then Windsor, of course, Windsor Castle, and then London, and maybe all the way down to the south. And so I was just very, very inspired. I had no idea what I was getting into. And 4 years and 2,500 hours later, I wrote Brittfield and the Lost Crown, which was the first of now a 7-book series. And what's interesting about the series is and often when you're called to do something, you have no idea what you're getting into. At the time I was thinking, oh, I'll just write 250 pages. It ended up to be about, almost 400 pages for the first book. And when I wrote the first book, I wasn't anticipating on doing a series, but when I finished it, I thought, wow, I've really got something here. But what I noticed during the process, and this is during the years of process, I was going out to like Barnes and Noble. I was sort of seeing what was out there. I knew this was going to be sort of a middle school / young adult type of book. And I started to see what was out there, and I was quite frankly, I was horrified that, on the shelves, it was nothing but really witchcraft and vampires and demigods and mysticism and occultism, and really just a saturated market. There was no balance. And I thought, well, gosh, this would be a really great book because it doesn't have any of that. And I also saw it as such a powerful book for family and family values. And if anyone were to ask me, what's the book about, or what's the series about, it's anchored in family. It's anchored in the importance of family that's just threaded throughout, and not necessarily just, you know, Tom being an orphan or maybe learning that his parents might still be alive, but it's his relationship with his best friend Sarah, it's his relationship with the other orphans. And it's the type of family that comes together not through blood or birth, but by bond and by courage and loyalty. And so it has a lot of different levels to it. And of course, it's a fast-paced adventure novel. I think what makes the story resonate so well, why it's become a national bestseller. In fact, we have some phenomenal news that's happened in the last week, which we'll get into. And it's one of the most awarded books in children's fiction, is because number one, it just takes place in present time. And so it's a book that kids and adults can relate to when they're reading it. It's everyone can relate to Tom or Sarah or any of the other characters, because it's real time, the real places that they go. I see it as a powerful educational book. And as the parents know out there, especially like the homeschoolers or the moms,
Yeah.
Our education system is in such disarray and in the worst state it's ever been in the history of our educational system. And so it's a great book that kids can learn. They can learn about geography, history, art, architecture, and culture. We've got 5 maps in the front of the book. And so I think that's fun. And we like to call it stealth education, because kids don't realize it, but they're learning a lot about history and art and literature and other things. And then number 3, it's a very powerful message of family values, you know, family, friendship, loyalty, and courage. And those are the kind of the 4 pillars of it, along with faith. And faith plays a huge role in the book and in the series. And so we launched it, the first book. So from concept and doodle to 10 years of hard work and dedication, we launched the first book in 2019, August 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just launched in July 4th, we just launched Britfield and the Rise of the Lion, book 2, which takes place in France, and that's exciting. That's 474 pages. And then we're launching next year in June, Brittfield and the Return of the Prince, and it takes place in Italy. So you got 7 books, 7 different countries. In every book, Tom and Sarah become 1 year older, which is a lot of fun, not only for the reader, I think, but for the writer, because Dolores, you can relate, and everyone else out there. A child that's 12 that goes to 13 is like a decade.
Yeah.
And a child that goes from 12 to 14 is like 2 decades. And so there's a lot of growth there, and there's a lot of maturity there, and it's really exciting. So I'm having so much fun writing book 3. It's going to be about 550 pages. It's amazing. It's a lot of work. Tom and Sarah are now 14, and the adventure continues in Italy. So it's a lot of fun to incorporate all this wonderful architecture and art and locations. And it's a pleasure to write. It's exciting for the readers. And since we launched book 2, we've just had some just incredible feedback. In fact, I read something last week where the comment on Amazon was a masterpiece. And I thought,
oh, great.
I thought, thank you. You get it. I mean, there was 3,000 hours in 5 years in book 2, and so he gets it. And he called it a historical marvel. And I thought that was really good, because it is difficult. It's one thing to write fiction, or elevated fiction, like your sort of Narnia series, and then there's another way to write just straight fiction. But when you're writing historical fiction, in the sense where it's in present time, but you're trying to tie in a little bit of background here and there, but you don't want to overwhelm it. You don't want to flood it with paragraphs about, like with Britfield and Lost Crown. You don't want to flood it with paragraphs about London or the history of this or that. So it's a very finite technique of getting just enough in there where there's a tidbit of information and it's interesting, but it doesn't dilute it. It's not like, it's what I call a speed bump. You're reading and all of a sudden, boom, there's like a paragraph, and it has nothing to do with the story. So anyway, so it's been an amazing journey. We've started the development of the first Britfield movie. In fact, I talked with one of the producers yesterday for another hour, and we're really excited. So Britfield Lost Crown book 1 will be made into a major motion picture. It's going to be live action. If all goes well, we'll be in pre-production next year, in the spring, and then hopefully production in England in the fall of next year. So almost this time next year, if all goes well, we'll be actually in production in England, and then ideally it would be released in the holidays, either Thanksgiving or Christmas of 2023. So that's not, it's 2 years out, but I mean, how time flies. And so we're really excited. I think this movie is going to be extremely powerful. I think it's going to be extremely well received. From our estimates and research, I believe that Britfield Lost Crown movie will be one of the most anticipated and one of the most successful movies in cinematic history, rivaling such things as Star Wars and some of the other, contenders, if you will. And a lot of it is just because it's number one, it's just a great story. It's fun, it's exciting. Number two, it speaks to all demographics. So it really doesn't matter your background or your beliefs or what you like or what you dislike. It's just a great story about family, triumph over tragedy, David and Goliath type of story. It's very visually pleasing with the dark moors of Yorkshire to the pristine, streets and buildings of Oxford to the royalty of Windsor to London. And so you have all these wonderful locations. And I think it's the type of movie that, kids will come back to see again and again because you'll pick up a lot that you missed. I think it's a great movie for grandparents. It's like, finally, I can actually take the kids to something. I mean, what's out there? What can they see? There's nothing. And Hollywood is starving for good content. I know right now Hollywood is finally admitting that they're actually looking for family content. And so we're looking at a couple big studios up there, and it's all in the Lord's hand. And so we'll see what the right fit is. Walden Media actually might be the right fit for this. And they're the ones that did the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the Narnia series and stuff. So we're really excited. But yeah, it's a type of movie that it would have that kind of Sound of Music appeal. And I say that because The Sound of Music is the third highest grossing movie in cinematic history. Star Wars was the fourth highest grossing movie in cinematic history. But with Sound of Music, and it's very interesting too, because The Sound of Music came out in 1965. And I mean, I grew up with it. We all love it. It's a classic. And I'm not really into musicals, but it's just a wonderful story. And again, visually pleasing. But it was running in some theaters for 18 months. And
Wow.
there are people that came back and saw it 30, 40, 50 times, if not just to have a better place to be for a couple of hours. And I think Britfield will have that, if you will, impact and power, because everything in it is real. Everything in it is honest. It's encouraging. There's no nefarious agenda, which are the slivers that run through pretty much all the content out there today. And it's just garbage. Right.
Yeah. Well, Chad, I'm so happy that you're doing this. We went to the movies last weekend, and one parent complained because I took my kid to a supposedly safe movie for kids, but all the stuff that they play in between, the previews, are so horrendous. The guy said, you know what? I gotta wait till the movie actually come on before I can take my kid to the movies, because he was trying to avoid all the stuff that you didn't want your kid to see. That's what he saw during the previews for upcoming movies. And so that was terrible. So I'm glad your Britfield movie will be coming out. And your new book now, how well received is your new book? Is it out in schools yet, or I know it just recently came out?
Yeah, so it launched officially July 4th, which is kind of a fun and patriotic day. I won't release in July again, because July is kind of a weird month. But no, it's done. It's already a bestseller since it's come out, which is great. The reviews have been phenomenal, really. And a lot of it has been feedback. We had about 150 professional reviewers to review it, and so we've already received quite a bit from it. And it's always exciting because it's interesting how the book resonates with each person. But just some of the reviews. I mean, I think we're at 4.75 out of 5 stars on Amazon, and I think that's 40 or 41 reviews. And so, again, just doing extremely well. You're always going to have a couple of the wing nuts and nut jobs out there that just don't like it. And, we just disregard them, and their impact has nothing. So, but it's been extremely well received. And it's funny because we were doing our national school tour, as you well know, and we launched that in August 2019. I ended up driving 9,000 miles, 23 states, 180 schools, and presented to almost 40,000 students. So having a huge impact, not just for Brittfield, but creativity and writing, and just really exciting kids and getting them encouraged, letting them know that they're born creative, that they're unique individuals, that they're gifted. They all have gifts that it might take 3, 5, 10 years to find those gifts, but you got to believe in your instinct and believe in your ideas. And I gave them a lot of examples like my own. Brittfield Lost Crown, I had an idea, and it took me over 10 years of hard work, dedication, failure, rejection to finally launch it. 10 years. And then I talk about Star Wars, George Lucas and his idea for this fun, exciting adventure in outer space, and every single person in Hollywood rejected him. Everyone thought it was stupid. Everyone thought it was ridiculous.
Mm.
Or even Pixar in Toy Story, which was their first digital animated movie. And for 10 years, they were rejected in Hollywood. Won't work. What do you know about film, et cetera, et cetera. And so I use examples that they can relate to, along with myself, that really every overnight success takes about 1 to 2 decades, right? And the difference between a hobby and a profession is about 8 to 10,000 dedicated hours. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. There is no sidelining that. It's a process. It takes time. It takes commitment. It takes dedication. And as I've said before, we live in this sort of flash over substance society where it's, I want it now, or I want to be a millionaire now, or I want riches now. And number one, that's not a reality. But or they'll see the actor getting the Oscar, or they'll see the actor that's getting $10 million for film. I guarantee you, if you go back and you look at their biography, they've been in the game for at least 10 years, more than likely about 15 or 20 years, when you didn't know them as a name. And it was like that, it was that first commercial they got, and then a year went by, and they went on 100 auditions and got rejected. And then another year went by, and they picked up another commercial after 200 rejections. And then they read for a bunch of, plays, and finally got a bit part. You know what I mean? And it's just, they stuck with it. They believed in their skill. They kept honing their talent. And finally, when the timing was right, they aligned with a break. And that's true not just for Hollywood. It's true in every profession. And so anyway, so we kicked off the virtual tour last fall, and then this spring was really, really exciting. We did about almost 24 schools.
So you actually physically went back into the schools?
I didn't physically. We did the virtual.
Oh, everything. So is everything still virtual?
Yeah. So we took the whole in-person tour and put it into the virtual Zoom.
Yeah.
And again, too, like for so many people out there, it's like, what's that going to be like? But it's just, it's beautiful. It's turnkey. It went extremely well. Sometimes it would just be a couple classrooms. Sometimes it was an auditorium. For one school, everyone was at home. And so we had something like 300 students online at the same time.
Hey,
it was great.
Chad, how do you actually get into the schools and do that virtually with the school? How do you determine what school that you're actually going into with the virtual?
Yeah, it's been a long process. I mean, we're sort of open to any school particularly, but it's got to be the right fit and the right school.
Okay.
And I have a team that worked on it and works with it. And we've probably done about 50 schools in California. And again, mostly private, but I'm open to public, but public becomes tricky because it's bureaucratic, and it's like, we've got to vote on this, or it's got to go up the chain, or it's, and it's like, I'm not going to wait around 3 months. So you guys, you know what I mean? So private schools have more flexibility. Charter schools are great. We've even done a homeschool group where they can just make the decision and say, fantastic, I'd love to bring a best-selling, award-winning author in here to inspire the kids. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So so it's been kind of private. Believe it or not, Catholic schools have been wonderful. Not Catholic in any sense of the word, but they seem to get it. They get it. There's great quality. They're excited to do it. They send out the link. Parents buy the books. I mean, it's been a great experience. But it's taken a long time to figure out where to go, where to aim. California, obviously, with was it 49 million people, 39 million? I can't remember. Maybe it's 39, 40 million people. So it's a huge state. And then Texas was good. We've done about 25 schools there. Florida. So it's kind of big states. And sometimes it's the right fit for the right states. They're a little bit more conservative, if you will. But I've been all over, really. Georgia, Indiana. I've been all the way down to, on the tour itself, I was all the way down to Louisiana, to New Orleans. I've been in Memphis, Tennessee. I've been in Jackson, Mississippi. I've been in Oklahoma City in Oklahoma. I've been in Santa Fe, New Mexico, Denver, Seattle. I mean, Kansas, Iowa. Yeah. So it's just, I mean, everywhere in all these different schools, public, private, Catholic. I was even at a top Muslim school in Dallas.
Oh, okay.
Like 200 students, and very cool. I mean, very, very different. All the boys sat on one side and all the girls sat on the other side, and they kind of had their gray uniforms on. But once the Q&A section kicked off at the end, it's like hands were going up and they were just all excited. And afterwards, a bunch of them came up, were asking me questions. And so, so it's kids are kids, and they're awesome. And especially at that age between 10, 11, and 12, they're very inquisitive, and they're willing to ask questions and learn and take risks. And that's why we've really targeted that group and that audience. And we're making massive impact, massive impact. So, we're reaching thousands and thousands of kids. So the virtual tour has been relatively successful, different. But we went back to some of the schools we were at before. And so you're asking me about getting book 2 in some of the schools, and it was great. I mean, they were so excited with book 1 that we had quite a few schools that bought 40 or 50 books of book 2, Britfield and the Rise of the Lion, to immediately distribute to the classrooms and start teaching, reading it and teaching it. And so that was kind of cool. I mean, how many people launch a book, and within like a month, it's already in schools and classrooms being taught. I mean,
that is phenomenal.
It's almost unheard of. And a lot of it was launched with book 1 because we have an 83-page study guide for teachers to go through it and teach it in the classroom, which is cool. We haven't done that yet for 2. We will, but I think they were just so excited to get into it. And there's such rich stories of fun and excitement. They're great books of vocabulary, sentence structure, analogies, subplots, just intrigue, character development, character leaps, history, deep dive. I mean, just everything. They're very rich books. You learn a lot from them, and I think you could definitely reread them. So
that's great. That is wonderful. Now, I know you have the Frankfurt book fair. Is that this month or? Yeah,
it's this month. So we've got a really exciting year. It's kind of interesting that this whole thing started as far as kind of officially we could say September of 2018. And so at the end of this last September, this year, was really an end to our first chapter of our Britfield journey. And it was very clear, I felt it very clear that was, at the end of September was the first, chapter, first phase of this whole project. So it was like, it represented 3 years of hard work, building infrastructure, branding the book, getting it out there, making the contacts. And October is really a new beginning for us. It's the next stage. It's the next level. And the last 2 weeks have been amazingly insane in a great way. High octane. It's a lot more high level focus for us now. Whereas before, you get kind of stuck in a lot of the administration stuff or small details. And while they're important, they can be kind of like rabbit holes. And so everything for me is like, it's important meetings. It's important focus. Where we've been for 3 years, nationally focused, we are now completely globally focused to get Britfield out across the world. And so the Frankfurt Book Fair will be great for us. We're going to be one of the featured books there. And what happens at these, and Frankfurt is probably it's like the Oscars of the book world.
Okay.
It's the biggest, and especially for young adult and children's fiction. And what it is you've got like thousands and thousands of publishers from around the world. And the way it works, because a lot don't know it, is it's like you see books that are in like 10 languages or 20 languages. It's not the publisher that necessarily does it. Random House, hires all these translations. What they'll do is they'll sell it to a publisher in France, and then the publisher in France has the exclusive rights to publish the book in France. They'll translate it into the French language, or Germany in German language. And so that's kind of how the process works. And so usually if you've picked up, 30 or 50 countries, it means that you've sold it the rights to be published in 30 to 50 countries. So we already have Poland. Poland is our first country that has stepped up, wants to buy the rights to book 1 and book 2. So I'm actually really excited, and it's kind of funny because Poland has been on my mind for the last 12 months as far as a great partner for us and strategic ally, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Russia has made an offer to purchase book 1 and 2. Japan is interested, and South America. And so I'm really excited about the Frankfurt Book Fair because we've got incredible momentum. We now have sort of the announcement of the first Britfield movie, which has a lot of cachet, to say the least. And so I'm hoping, God willing, at this Frankfurt Book Fair that we pick up, another 3 or 5, 10 countries. I mean, it could happen. It could happen like that.
That is great.
You instantly would go from selling 100,000 books a year to 1 million.
Oh, wow.
It could be that fast. I think Britfield is going to do extremely well in Poland, and part of the reasons for is Europe's great, and yes, and England and Scotland and Ireland, and we definitely, want it to be selling there and doing well. Eventually France and Germany, yes. But Eastern Europe for us, I think, will be such a huge impact for Britfield. Eastern Europe has always been at the crossroads of history. They've always been trying to find their identity. They've always been sort of the David and the Goliath, between Russia on one side, imposing on them, and communism, and even back in, World War II with Germany coming in and taking swaths of land and invading. And they've always been in the middle, with Poland kind of at that central piece. And they're always trying to find their identity. And a book like Britfield and Lost Crown it's not about a royal mystery or Britain. It's about triumph over tragedy. It's about David and Goliath. It's about standing up to the big one. It relates to family and freedom and just wanting to be left alone and living life and enjoying life. And I think all those threads will resonate so powerfully with the book and the story that a country like Poland, I could see Britfield and Lost Crown being the #1 best-selling book in the country, And so you got 37 million people. They're very family oriented. I love their stand right now with the UN. They're basically telling them to pound salt. We're done listening to your garbage. We're done listening to your crap. We're not taking any of these, militants. And so Poland just and they're very family oriented. I think about 70% of them speak English. And so Hungary will be another great country. I think Hungary's 10, 12 million people, very family oriented, very independent, very into freedom, into their own identity. And so books like Britfield would resonate. And you can see why I'm saying it would just be very, very powerful. Coming to Poland, I'm already planning a global trip next year. It's going to be 12 countries, starting in Poland, and then we get into Slovakia, we get into Vienna, Austria, come all the way down to Romania, come up to the Ukraine and back to Poland, and it's going to be a very, very powerful tour and impact. And then from once you kind of saturate or impact Eastern Europe, you start to spread out, to the rest of Europe, and then we have Russia. And then I think Asia will be very interesting. I'm excited about Japan. I think this book will be very, very big in Japan.
Well, you know what, Chad, your book is so wonderful and so impactful. It's needed right here in America. Very, very much needed right here in light of, with the education. And I have a question about that,
Sure.
kind of carry over from our last interview about the education of our kids and where we're going with critical race and all these things that have nothing to do with educating our kids, but indoctrinating them into things that have nothing to do with education. And it's just gonna lead us down a wrong path in our children, if we don't change course. And so your book, Brittfield, and your series is very much needed in the schools here, and books like this that are positive and not, taking our kids the wrong way. It's just, I just think it's evil what's happening in education.
Oh, it is evil, and it's communism at its very core.
Yeah,
you can give it 31 flavors of description. It's pure communism. Anyone that's involved in getting this garbage and crap in the school system needs to be physically removed. It's that simple. If I don't see them being under any type of law anymore, especially when they're bringing in this sexual deviant garbage and crap. This isn't open for debate. They need to be physically removed. And so, if not you, who? And if not now, when?
yes.
And so you don't need to ask anymore for permission to stand up and fight, not only just for America, but for your kids and for the educational system. We've got so many wonderful military people out there, or ex-military. They need to get involved, and they need to band together, and they need to start to take back the districts, and they need to start taking back the schools. And if these unions, teachers unions, are pushing this communistic agenda, they need to be shut down permanently. This is war. They crossed the line when they started sticking those diapers on children's faces for no reason at all, but just to dehumanize them, to desensitize them, to make them sicker. You have a 50% chance. 50% higher chance of catching cancer when you're wearing a mask for over 24 hours. You're getting 30% less oxygen. So it's causing all types of problems. Plus the masks themselves are just filthy. Most of them come from China, so they've got all kinds of particles in them, and God knows what else. And so any principle that is pushing that forward needs to be removed immediately. Just needs to be removed. This isn't open for debate anymore. Masks need to come off. This whole propaganda nonsense, quote unquote pandemic, which is a complete and total false lie. needs to come to an end. Anyone that's pushing it needs to be physically removed from office, from the police department, from the educational system, or whatever, period. Not
Yeah.
next month, not next year, now.
Yeah.
The joke's over, it's done, you know?
Yep.
So that's my feeling on it, but.
Well, I mean, but you speak the truth, but unfortunately, you can't speak the truth today without getting canceled. And that's another part of the problem.
The truth is like a double-edged sword that goes deep
Yes.
into the marrow. Getting it out there, the people that need to hear it will hear it, and don't worry about the communistic Facebook,
Mhm.
which is really just run by the CIA, not the actors that are out there that are making the decisions. Same thing with Twitter. You know, they're all funded by either DARPA, CIA, etc. That's a fact. Do the research, you know, to the tune of billions of dollars, and most of it's our tax money that's actually funded these things. So don't worry about them. There's plenty of platforms out there. There's plenty of groups. Sometimes, you know, you might have like 3 or 4 people listening, but that one person has huge impact, or God's called that one person to go out to thousands of people. So just get the truth out there, because the truth will not come back void. And so very, very important. But yeah, for us, it's just really getting into the schools. There's 100,000 middle schools and elementary schools across the United States. Our goal is to have Britfield and at least, you know, 80 to 90% of them within the next 3 to 5 years. We're making extremely great progress, not just with the tour, but we're working with a wonderful retailer who's in 55,000 schools, and they love Britfield. They've been in the business for 30 years. And so what they have is, they're like Scholastic. They sell books and products to all the schools, so they have relationships, and they have sales teams throughout the United States. And the gentleman that I'm working with, that's been with the company for 8 years, loves Britfield and Lost Crown, says he hasn't seen anything like it for the 8 years that he's been there. And he's using Britfield and Lost Crown as their -- middle school book, which is, again, this is amazing. And so they did a huge purchase, when was it? During the summer, for this spring campaign to get Britfield in thousands of schools. And then as of Friday, this last Friday, they purchased another 23,000 books of Britfield Lost Crown for their spring campaign. And that might not sound like a lot of books. That's huge. That's huge, so much that my literary agent wants to start doing some press and media around it, because anyone in the industry knows that is massive. And just for your listeners, most published, 98% of all published books fail to make a profit. 98% of all published books will never sell more than 2,000 to 3,000 books in their entire lifetime. So when you're walking into Barnes and Noble or Costco or whatever bookstore or library, and you see all those books up there, just know that and then probably won't be on the shelves more than a year to 2 years, except for the classics, of course, you know, Charles Dickens, or any of those others that have made that impact. And so 23,000 units, 23,000 books is massive. Puts us up into the top 1% of all published books since the beginning of publishing. So it's huge. And then they'll do an additional order next year of about 30 to 50,000 more books until we're eventually in all of their 55,000 schools.
That is
and so great. I'm coming back full circle, because you said it's important to get Britfield into the schools, and I was sort of talking about globally. I'm still here in the United States. I'm still focused on the US. We're doing what we need to do. And we're trying to penetrate it, you know, into the school system, into the educational system. And when Britfield comes into a school to be taught, or a classroom, guess what? One of those crap books get knocked out. You know what I mean? One of those agenda-riddled garbage books get kicked out, and that's what we need to do. So, and then what's kind of exciting too is we're developing Britfield Lost Crown into a theatrical play.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Now, is that going to be made here in the United States, or where is that going to be?
Yeah, so it's we're going to start the development of it. I'm trying to think of the right word, because the story's written, so we just need to transition it into a play. It's going to be about a 75, 80-minute play, because it's specifically geared towards elementary and middle school. And just for those out there, there's 4 categories of theatrical plays. Musical or theatrical play. You have children, and it's 30 minutes. You have middle school, which is about 60 minutes. You have high school, which is usually about 90 minutes. And then you have professional, like Broadway, off-Broadway, La Jolla Playhouse, you know, any of those kind of places that would be. And so it's the same story, but it's just developed differently. And Disney's picked up on this. I'm no fan of Disney, but they've picked up on this. So like Frozen, you see it as a movie. It's
Mhm.
immediately developed into a play once the movie comes out
Okay.
and is into the system. And there's something like there's certain websites or platforms out there for schools that they can go and they can look for a play or they can look for a musical and you buy it. Just like for an example, like Frozen, just a license, just a school, doesn't matter how big you are or how much what your budget is, just to license it to put it on as a production is about $1,200, and then you got to buy all the booklets and so it's a $5, $10, $15,000 investment for a school. I'm using a big example because Frozen was very popular and stuff.
Yeah.
Other plays you can do for a couple of $100s and things like that. But the point is there's really not much content out there. And it was 18 months ago when someone had mentioned to me, they said, gosh, this would make a great play. And of course, I'm not thinking about a play, I'm thinking about a movie,
Yeah.
but now I'm really excited. So we're in November, we're going to be developing it and transitioning it into a 75-minute play, 2-act play.
Now, is that here in San Diego or where is that going to be?
At school.
The
Pardon?
play, where will you develop your play and where will that be showing?
Yeah, I'll do it internally here, at home, and then and I've got a script writer,
Okay.
and then it will be. Are you there?
Yes. I hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Yeah, your reception kind of went off. Yeah. So Mission Viejo Christian School was a school that was the first school that we actually presented on our tour, and they're just a really cool school. They're really great. They've been very supportive. I presented in front of I think about 220 students. I've been back to that school twice, and so I contacted the director of the theater department a couple of weeks ago and said, I'm interested in transforming Britfield Lost Crown into a theatrical play. Could we use your school? Could we pilot it there next fall? And so she said yes. And so that'll be the first school that we actually piloted at. And she goes, we were going to do Frozen because they usually plan out 18 months ahead.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, we'll just bump Disney's Frozen until spring of 2023. And so I thought, okay, cool. We just bumped Disney.
Yeah.
And so, so I'll be developing it over about 6 to 8 weeks, transitioning into it, really tailoring it towards middle school, elementary. Once we do that, we'll do some test runs. We'll coordinate with the theater director, which is great because she's done so many plays that she knows. I mean, the people that I'm working with have written theatrical plays, but
okay.
we want to tailor it because she knows all those little ins and outs, things you don't do, or too many. I mean, just things that you need to know, especially with that age group. Is you couldn't do 90 minutes because it's too long and too much. Your lead actors usually don't have more than 30 lines to memorize, and so it's little things like that. And so it's like if you weren't cautious to it, you might be writing this really great monologue, and it's not going to flow. And so what you want is
how do you go about getting a cast?
Oh, we won't do anything. She'll cast it.
She does all of that.
Yeah, she's got our theater group.
Okay.
Which is great for us. And so what we'll be supplying is the play and everything else that they need. And they'll just be putting it on with their theater production. And it's interesting too, because I think when you and I grew up, theater wasn't really that cool and sexy. You know what I mean? It was like theater was the weirdos and the nerds.
Yeah.
Now it's like really cool, right? And it's funny. I think she's just at their school, and their school's not necessarily big, but she's got about 140 students that are interested in every theater production, whether it's behind the scenes, whether it's just extras, or of course, like some of the major roles and stuff. And so part of it is figuring out with Britfield Lost Crown as the story, what are the most important scenes that I need? Because I'm limited to 75 pages because every page is a minute. So what are the essential scenes? And then what is the essential dialogue? And then one thing that you can do with theater is Tom and Sarah, my main characters, might have a lot of dialogue, but what you want to do is but you're really getting across content. You're getting across ideas or whatever. There's a reason that they're speaking. You might divide that up into some other actors that weren't necessarily prominent, and then what that does is it puts on a really good play. It's nicely balanced. Tom doesn't have like 50 lines, and this one character's got 2. Tom might have 30 lines, and then you take 20. Yeah. And so unless it necessarily has to come from Tom, most of the time it's just information. And so it's just things like that it's very tailored, very specific. It's definitely something that I could see Britfield Lost Crown becoming a Broadway musical, and I'm not trying to get ahead of myself. But I just think it would work. It would be it's kind of like Matilda, you know what I mean? Like that went on, and there's some other example like Annie, you know, that became one of these great musicals with the orphanage. But I can and that might be 4 or 5 years down the road. So, and I can always take the play once it's developed from the 75 minutes and easily transition it into 90 minutes. But I don't so much see this for colleges. I think it'd be fun for theater in general, but I don't necessarily see it for college. I don't see college students putting it on, really. You know what I mean? It's like you always want to know your audience, right? First thing in strategy is don't try to be all things to all people. So, but this will be great. So this is, and once it's piloted next fall, and we run it and we see how the response is, and you know, like anything else, you're kind of tweaking and visually seeing it. Then it'll be locked and loaded and ready for schools across the nation to purchase it, you know, and then like for schools like Title I schools, we'll give it away. You know what I mean? It's not so much monetary for us. Yeah. Although if the schools can afford it, then they can pay for it. But usually what it is, it's the director's script, then it's the script, and then what will make this play so extraordinary, so exciting, is I want to take the audience to England. I want them to like feel that they're in England. And so you can imagine most theaters or most schools, they always have an auditorium, they have a projector. They have a projector. And so what will be included in the turnkey package for Britfield and Lost Crown would be visual slides. And so at the beginning, you know, you might have this beautiful picture of the moors and this castle in the distance and the stormy weather. You know what I mean? And it might be moving. It might, you know, like the clouds might be moving, or it could just be still. You'd have sound effects, and so you'd hear the, you know, I mean, whatever, and or like, you know, the doors squeaking, you know, opening, or when they're escaping and the dog, you know, I mean, the barking or something like that. So it would run along with the scenes, and you'd have so it'd be very easy. And all of a sudden, it's like boom, the next slide comes up, and it's like once they're in the basket, you can only imagine how beautiful that'll be. As they're like, oh my gosh, look over there, the Lake District, and all of a sudden it's like this image comes up, and you see this beautiful rolling hills and the crystal clear blue water, and then oh, look at over there, look at the monastery or the cathedral, and you have this beautiful cathedral, and then you have the rolling grass hills, and you have the red tile roofs, and I was like, oh, what's that up there? And it's Oxford, and you see, you know what I mean? And so all these images come up, and as you're sitting here watching this play, it's like you're feeling it, you know what I mean? And then along in the background, you might have sound effects when sound effects need to be there. And it's funny too, because I'm like, how in the world do you do this, like with the basket and the balloon? And I thought I could totally see a 3-sided basket being on the stage, and then you have 4 ropes, you know, and then you might have a little bit of tackling up here or something like that, and it kind of disappears. And so, and that's how you kind of do the balloon. And you could have a fan off if they're blowing wind. Kids can kind of rock back and forth as they're doing their lines. I mean, the whole story isn't in the balloon. The balloon is just a vehicle to get from place to place. But I'm saying, how do you overcome that? But I thought that's very easy to do, because you want to keep in consideration, number one, you want a play that's easy for schools to adapt, that they sit there and say, oh my gosh, I can't produce all this, or I can't buy all this, or I can't make all this. So you want to think very intelligently. And even at the beginning scene at the orphanage, you know, instead of having, like, there's a scene where they're making the kids are working on tables and chairs, and the girls are weaving baskets. All you would really need to do is just set up some chairs, and then just have the kids doing pantomime, you know, where they're, you know, maybe they're putting something, or they're hammering something, and the girls are kind of over here and they're making the baskets. And I think, to me, not only is that more interesting, but you're not dealing with a lot of props and a lot of movement, if that makes sense. And so a lot of it was kind of getting the conceptual, how would this work as a play? And to me, that's more inventive. That's more, and then streamlined scenes, you know, as you're fading out here, a light's coming up here with Detective Gowerstone, you know, knocking at a door. And then all of a sudden it's like the thing fades out and all this thing opens up. So the whole thing would feel like a movie. So.
Well, you know what, Chad, I want to go to that play. I want to be a kid.
No, I'm going to send out a huge invitation. I mean, it's going to be, it'll be fun. It will be, I mean, it's at this great little private school, but it will be an event. And normally these type of plays, they'll run for a week, meaning they might do a Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
Sunday. Depending on this, I mean, I think we could run it definitely for a couple of weekends. We'll invite other schools, in fact, even other schools that we have been to and visited, to come to this. So I think it won't just be sort of the kids' parents coming to this play. I think it will be an event. We'll have media there. I'll be inviting my friends. I think it'll be exciting. You know what I mean? And great revenue for the school,
Oh
right?
yeah.
For their theater
Yeah.
department, right? I mean,
Mhm.
they could do really well on this. And so we're
Yeah.
always into contributing to the schools and helping out the teachers. That's what we're about. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, when do you plan to have? I know you mentioned that you're having a press conference. When do you plan to do that?
What was that? I'm sorry.
You plan to have a press conference, and what would that be to
Yeah, it'd be a
announce?
press release for the Britfield movie. So I've done some internal press releases with sort of my team. We've got quite a few databases of a lot of contacts, but the official press release will probably, if all goes well, will probably be in November. And that's basically there's I don't know, maybe 5, 7, 10 major news wires that you
Okay.
would you could probably just do one, but you could do there's everything from mainstream to face-based, you know,
Okay.
different news wires. And so what you do is you'll write it up. It's usually 2 paragraphs, it's an announcement, and then you shoot it into the news wires, and then it goes out, and anyone that wants to pick up the story picks it up. But the thing is, it becomes, if you will, official, because it's out in the world, it's out in the mainstream. And
Okay.
so if all goes well, we'll probably have our announcement will be one of probably 50 over the next 18 months. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, so the first announcement for the movie, if all goes well, will be in November. So
Okay.
things are moving right now extremely well. In fact, like I said, I spoke with one of my producers yesterday, and I can't give away too much, but he's already having quite a few meetings with highly influential people in Hollywood, ones that have worked on billion-dollar projects and Academy Award-winning films,
Mhm.
directors and producers, and they're very interested. They're excited about Britfield, and so it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see which studio is the studio, and so really in the next couple of weeks we've been putting the package together. We've been building the team. We've been putting the feelers out there, the people, you know, as far as, you know, getting them a book or having a conversation with them. Mostly Sam, who's one of the producers, but we'll probably be moving towards the studios in the next couple of weeks, and then from there, an ideal situation would be the bidding war. So I think Warner Brothers would be a good fit for this. I think Universal could be a good fit for this, and I think Walden Media, Lionsgate. We'll see. So yeah, ideally, our first press release will be in November, mid or end of November, and that'll be like a mainstream press release, and it will be probably one of 50 over the next 18 months, because it'll be the first announcement with something specific, and then as things grow, it'll be another announcement. It'll be very interesting to see as things grow with the film, who signed on, what actor, and what director, what writer, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be a fun process. So once we're out, it's like they say, the hardest part of the journey is leaving the front gate. And so I think once that first press release is out there, we're live, we're real, things will pick up exponentially. And if all goes well, we'll be filming next fall in England, and you know, possibly parts of Eastern Europe. But I'm hoping that we can do most of it in England. You don't have to, and I say that in the sense that most films aren't filmed where that you think they're filmed. Like you might have a TV series right now that's in quote unquote New York, and it's really being shot in Toronto, which is actually common. They call Canada Hollywood North. So or you have an establishing shot. You might be showing London, you know, like an opening scene, and you see the Millennium Wheel. You see Big Ben. You see like some boats along the river there, and then all of a sudden it's like a shot, and they're walking down the street on a cobblestone. More than likely, that's shot at a studio, or it's shot in Eastern Europe or things like that. But I'm hoping that it can be anchored in England, because I love the authenticity of it. I think
Yeah.
it's a great shout out to England. I think it will build great momentum for them. I think this movie would be a huge draw for tourism, to say the least. And Brittfield was written as a tribute in many ways to to Britain and the British people. I love England. I love their history. I've lived there for a couple of years and enjoy it. Same thing with France. I mean, I love France, and I love their history, in Italy. And so all these books are really meant to be tributes to the beauty of these countries. So.
Amen. Amen. Well, it has been wonderful having this conversation with you, and just bringing something positive to our audience and to the people of America, because we need positive right now.
Right.
Chad. We need something good, something that is pure and unbiased.
Sure.
And,
Yeah, I think everybody has gifts. I think everyone that's watching has certain gifts. They have certain callings.
yeah.
Don't get distracted by all this nonsense and crap. And I mean, some of it might be impacting you directly. I get that, but stick to what you were called to do, and do that with your best ability. I love what Mike McIntosh, who was one of the founders from the Calvary Chapel and Horizon Ministries, and he said, I just show up every morning and let God use me. And that really stuck with me. It's like showing up every morning, and it's like, it's good to have a plan or what you're going to do today, but just being, practicing a sense of stillness, listening, and just seeing where God wants to go and how he wants to use you, but focus on what you've been called to do. That's what I'm doing with Britfield. I'm not getting distracted with all this nonsense and this and that, and flash over substance here, and a fire here, and an earthquake there, and another mandate here, and blah, blah, blah. And it's all garbage and it's all crap. I just ignore it. Unless it affects me directly, I ignore it and I stick to what I've been called to do. And that's focus on Brittfield and push this mission forward. And all I'm doing is I'm actually accelerating it now. So I say that as encouragement to people that might be watching. It's like, reconnect with what you were supposed to be doing or should be doing, and do it, and show up every morning and do the best you can. So.
Amen. Now, do you want to share how people can contact you, or?
Sure. Yeah, we our website's always the best. It's Britfield.com, Britfield, Britfield.com. It's a great website. It's an award-winning website. It's got over 400 pictures of England. So if you do buy the book, or you're reading the story, or you're a teacher teaching it, it's a great resource. We have a media kit there. We have our contact information. We have our store. We also have if you're a homeschooler and you want to actually teach Brittfield, we actually have the study guide. It's based on national standards. It's a let's say 87-page study guide. We have the audiobook by an award-winning British voice talent. So if you wanted to listen to Brittfield, which has been popular, I've gotten some feedback from parents that were taking trips over the summer listening to Brittfield in the car, and they'd finally get to the destination, and the kids are like, no, hold on, wait. Like, it's like 7 hours of driving. They're like, hold on, I want to see how the scene ends and stuff. So yeah, everything you would need is there. Lots of information about our school tours there. It's under tour.
Okay.
And it's got some information, but it's got some great pictures of the different places we've been. It's got lots of quotes from teachers, and so
yeah, that's wonderful. That is wonderful. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you,
I
Laura.
appreciate you coming and sharing. I've been excited about hearing what's going on with Brittfield, because it's, like I say, it's so positive.
Yeah, I'm excited. Things are really moving beautifully for us, and we've got a great year planned next year. I'm already focused on 2022. Although I want to enjoy this holiday and have fun and watch my favorite Christmas movies. And but thank you. It's been a privilege to be on the show.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much again, and I appreciate it more than you know. And then I want to thank my audience, to those of you who come and listen to my podcast, and just share this information, and take Brittfield into your homes, and get that book for your children, and let them escape into something positive, something that will uplift.
Yeah, I was gonna say half our reading audience are adults, and we've received so much great feedback from men, from women, from moms that are like, "Oh my gosh, I love this." So,
and even families.
Yeah,
like I said before, families.
We've gotten feedback, like one family, they actually made a Brittfield board game. How cool is that?
Wow.
And then there's another family that they get around and they read the different characters. And so we're seeing a lot of this really neat impact, that the book affects everyone differently. Sometimes for a younger audience, if someone's 6 or 7, the mom or the dad will read chapter a night or half a chapter a night. And so there's been a lot of those different levels that it affects everyone differently, but it affects everyone positively.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. But anyway, I just want to encourage everyone to get involved with Brittfield and nice Christmas gift as well. Wonderful Christmas gift in this time of year. And I just want to encourage you friends to log on each week, hit that red button, and subscribe to DW's View Stand Up, and would love to have you sponsor. And also share this message, share it with your friends, and share it across your social media so we can get the word out. I want everyone to know about Brittfield. That's why I wanted to talk to Chad again, and hopefully in the future he'll update us again. Keep us updated on Brittfield, what's happening with this wonderful movement. And I'm just thankful that you're letting God use you, Chad, to take this message and that you're not getting off track. And as I do each week, friends, I have a challenge for each one of you, and that is to stand up. And Chad has also challenged us to stand up for what's right, first of all, and then stand up for what God has called you to do. Because guess what? If we do not stand up, who will?